Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome to Mean Girls Empowerment Live. Tonight we're going to be talking to our parents about bullying. So it looks like I have some individuals on with us, and we'll give it a little bit more time for folks to join us. But ladies, how's your day going so far? Is it?
It's going well. How is yours?
It's going pretty good. Thank you for being
Good.
here with us. Thank you. We also have one of our Mean Girl moms with us. Miss Tamara is with us. Thank you for joining us tonight during this discussion.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So our viewers are going up, which is great. So people are coming on. So we'll give it about another minute or two. But I'm excited about this conversation tonight. Y'all know this topic is really dear to me. And so I really hope that our parents can take something away from this discussion. And I'm excited to have you here with us. Tawana, I know you are full of information, and I just thank God for our connection. So I'm
Yeah.
excited for what you're going to share with our audience tonight.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes. I am not going to prolong the time because we do have quite a few people on with us. My name is Shatina Edwards. For those of you who do not know me, I am the CEO and founder of Mean Girls Empowerment. Mean Girls Empowerment, we aim to prevent bullying and we empower girls to live a positive, healthy lifestyle. Our mission is to empower girls to avoid negativity, build self confidence, and pursue their goals and dreams through perseverance, courage, and creativity. As you guys know, if you didn't know, October, we celebrate quite a few things in October. We know October, we celebrate breast cancer awareness. We also celebrate domestic violence, but we all raise awareness to bullying prevention. And that's what our organization is doing in our community today. We have a host of girls in our program that are a part of Mean Girls Empowerment. And if you don't know anything about our organization, it stands for Manage Emotions, Avoid Negativity. We're all about preventing bullying within our community as well as in our schools. So I am going to introduce our speaker because there's a wealth of information we want to share and some conversation and discussion we want to have as well. I'm going to introduce to you our guest speaker for tonight. Her name is Tawana. And Tawana she's a licensed clinical social worker. She's an author. She's done quite a few things in the community. And I'm just so happy to have her here today. So, Tawana, go ahead and take the floor, please.
Thank you. So, thank you to those who have already joined for coming in to discuss bullying with us. We recognize that it is something that is affecting our children and teens at a high rate. So, I just want to provide some statistics, some information, some strategies, and have some dialogue about what we can do and how we can help prevent the syndrome of bullying. So, I'm ready to start. Okay, can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, what is bullying? When you hear the word bullying, can you drop the word that resonates with you into the chat, please? Because I know there's a host of definitions, but this will be the working definition for this evening. It is the intentional, repeated harmful acts, words, or other behavior, such as name calling, threatening, or shunning, committed by one or more children against another. The key words in that definition is intentional and repeated. So sometimes we call kids playing the dozen bullying. Or if a kid say, I don't like your hair today, bullying. Though that's not a repeated act, we always want to look for the intentional and repeated harmful acts that qualifies as bullying. Bullying may also be physical, verbal, social, or emotional in nature. So there's many forms of bullying, and we will explore them all this evening to make sure we all have a clear definition of what it looks like. Next slide, please. Facts about bullying. Now, my research focuses on school because that is usually where bullying takes place with children. Children spend a lot of their time at school. They have a lot of interaction with other children from all walks of life, and that's where it usually begins and takes place. So that's where my statistics is from. 90% of students in fourth through eighth grade have reported being bullied or harassed. That's a big number, guys, 90%. And this is starting in fourth grade. About 20% of students aged 12 to 18 experience bullying nationwide. So now you can see it's not just here in our local area, it's all around the world. Nationwide, 19% of students in high school, 9th through 12th grade, report being bullied on school property. So if it's 20% nationwide of students, then you see 19% of that is happening at school. There's only 1% of students nationwide that's being bullied outside of high school. Next slide, please. Among students aged 12 to 18 who reported being bullied at school during the school year, 15% were bullied online or by text. So social media has opened up a whole new door to bullying because now you can bully anonymously. You can bully and get your friends involved who may not even go to that school. So the issue is becoming enlarged with social media. Approximately 46% of students aged 12 to 18 who are bullied during the school year notified an adult at school about the bullying. So we as adults have a responsibility as it relates to protecting our children also. It's important that if we know of bullying, there's some things we can do, and that'll come later in the presentation. Approximately 160,000 teens have skipped school because of bullying. So they're becoming afraid, and school, which is usually known as a safe haven, is becoming an unsafe place. That's causing students to have all kind of mental health issues associated with bullying, which is something we will also explore during this presentation. Next slide, please. Types of bullying. There's physical bullying, which includes punching, poking, strangling, pulling hair, beating. Unexplained injuries is something I want to key in on. Sometimes kids don't want to tell adults they're being bullied. So what we notice is they'll start having injuries. It used to be a time when kids came to school with unexplained injuries, we would always think of parental abuse or some kind of abuse outside of the school. But now we're having to pay close attention that this could be happening right in our school or off school grounds by other children who are bullying them. And so pay attention to unexplained injuries. If your children are coming home and they always got a scratch or a mark or something that you didn't notice the day before, ask about it because everything isn't a fall or I got hurt at gym. Sometimes they're afraid to tell that they're being bullied and it's physical because they don't want parents involved because they feel like adults will make it worse. So they try to keep it to themselves. So make sure you're paying attention to your children or your loved ones or the kids in your neighborhood, whatever kids are in your care. There's also verbal bullying, which includes such acts as harmful name calling, teasing, gossiping, racist, sexual, or homophobic remarks or jokes, sexually suggestive comments, and abusive language. There's been an uptick in sexual suggestive comments. Some of it is because of what children see now, experience, hear about. So they're making more sexual suggestive comments about girls' bodies usually. And they don't think it's bullying because they label it as a compliment. Well, compliments turn into bullying if it's making someone feel uncomfortable. in their own skin, or making them want to cover up or not be seen, then and now we're getting into bullying. So we want to make sure that we know the difference, and we're teaching kids the difference between compliments and sexually suggestive comments, because in all honesty, sometimes they don't even know the difference. So we have to teach them. And abusive language, calling them out of their names, is usually what that looks like in school. Next slide, please. There's also social bullying, which includes spreading rumors, exclusion from groups, alienated people from social acceptance. So, if an example of that would be if you have a new student to transfer into a school, as kids look at her for no apparent reason, because you know how it goes, and they decide they don't like her, so now they go tell all their peer groups things about a student they don't know, and tell them don't let them sit with you at lunch, or don't invite them to the art club, or whatever that student is interested in. So they are isolating these students from any kind of social interaction among their peers. And then there, last but not least, is emotional bullying, which includes behaviors such as rejecting, extorting, getting them to give them things, humiliating, blackmailing. Blackmailing is very prominent, believe it or not. And it can be things as simple as giving me your lunch if you don't want me to tell something about you. Give me $1, or just control. The thing about blackmailing is it doesn't always have to be something someone's doing. They can just threaten you with it. If I let me see, some kids do. If I wet the bed, because we see that in elementary school, and someone knows it, the blackmailing may be, if you don't do this, I'll tell everybody this. And that's very emotional for children to have to carry, to keep a secret from the rest of their peers. Manipulating friendships, isolating, and peer pressure. If you don't engage in smoking marijuana with me, I'm going to tell the students that you're sexually active. So it's anything that someone can use to control your behavior that falls under emotional bullying. Next, please. Cyberbullying, sometimes referred to as electronic bullying, can involve sending mean, vulgar, or threatening messages or images. Let me say this. There is a new thing with videos. So what we're seeing as it relates to cyberbullying now, as it relates to images, is young girls, you wouldn't believe it, starting in elementary school, are starting to take provocative pictures of themselves, and they're sending them to the boys usually that they're interested in or want to date. And now that boy is sharing it with their friends, and before you know it, those images are around the entire school. It does fall under cyberbullying, but that also finds out under childhood pornography, just so you know, parents. Talk to your children about videos and images, because you would be surprised how many children I see on a regular basis who have made some kind of video or image, took some kind of picture that they started out sending to someone that was supposed to be their mate or a boyfriend. I like them. And now they're not wanting to come to school because those videos and images have been shared. And so they're embarrassed. And so they don't want to return. So make sure that you're holding those conversations. And if it happens, because sometimes they're not going to listen, make sure you know, I want you to know that it falls under child pornography. So if you have to go to the school and talk about it, use that term so that now they know that I know my rights and now I need to get some legal authorities involved, or meet with some parents, or however you choose to handle it. Cyberbullying can be posting sensitive information, pretending to be someone else, and you're not that person. I think I've covered all. Oh, it can be done using social media, email, instant messaging, text, or digital imaging. Thank you. Next slide. There is no federal laws that govern bullying, so you can't press charges necessarily about someone bullying your child. However, bullying often leads to crimes that are punishable. So let's make the connection between the two. Where there's no laws that govern bullying federally, there are laws that govern these crimes. So threat. A communication that threatens to kill or do bodily injury to a person or any member of his or her family and places the person in reasonable fear of death or bodily injury. That's a crime. So the threats that children get, it could be an adult threat, because adults can be bullied too, believe it or not. If someone's threatening you and you become fearful, now it's a crime. It extends from bullying. Harassment, to repeatedly annoy or attack a person or group in such a way as to cause anxiety or fear for safety. That's illegal. So that's another characteristic of bullying. Extortion, obtaining property from another person by using or threatening to use violence or other criminal means to cause harm to a person and or their reputation. These are crimes, but it falls under bullying. Next, please. Assault and battery. That's the physical part of bullying. So if a child is having those unexplained injuries, they're being hit, hair pulled, kicked down the stairs, now it's not just bullying. So there is consequences according to the school code on bullying, but now you have the right to bring in police and file criminal charges. Robbery. If they're the taking with the intent to steal of people property, that's a crime. So if they're doing it, it's not just bullying. I just want you to remember it's a crime also. Hazing, the reckless or intentional endanger to endanger the health or safety of a student. You see that a lot sometimes with sport teams or like the band or those type of organizations. Usually when I see it, it's related to sport teams. If you're new and you're joining one of the teams, then I've heard kids complain of acts that falls under hazing. So you may want to just be watchful if your students are joining organizations. What's the process? How do you get in these organizations? Ask them, are the older students doing anything to you? Because you want to be on the lookout for hazing. Next slide, please. So bullying has often been dismissed as a normal part of growing up, but that isn't the case. Bullying and the harm that it causes are seriously underestimated. It's a big deal. We know that kids tease, we know that kids play, we know that kids say nasty things to one another when they're upset. But remember, this is intentional and it's repeated. So we're not talking about something that happens every now and then. We're talking about something that is frequent in nature and that is causing harm to the student or the person being bullied. Next, please. So let's talk a little bit about the harm of bullying, the effects on the victim. Their grades may suffer because attention is drawn away from learning. They're spending their day thinking about how to avoid being bullied if they're there, or they're so consumed with what was said or done to them that now they're having focusing issues. So while they're present every day, You may be wondering why their grades so low. I know my child is always at school. I know they're in class, because their mind may be somewhere else, because they're paying attention and focused on the emotional trauma they may be suffering at the hands of a bully. Fear may lead to absenteeism, truancy, or even students dropping out. In high school, you may see more students drop out for bullying or being absent. In elementary school, not as much, because parents still control the kids' attendance. So they're bringing them, they're monitoring them closer. But in high school, kids have a little more freedom. So you can drop them off at school. They walk in one door and walk out another door. And sometimes parents never know. Or they're playing sick to get out of coming to school. And finally, they may just drop out. If the problem persists, victims sometimes feel compelled to take drastic measures, such as vengeance. So you see that on the news a lot. Students come back and they do awful things. They may shoot up the school. They may shoot you, the person who's bullying them. They may vandalize their house or their vehicles. So they do drastic measures. And then they may bring a weapon to school, which not only puts the bully at risk, but everybody that's associated or in the vicinity, the building, or even suicide. And I'm sure you've seen that on the news before, where students have been bullied, and even after the parents got involved, it wasn't resolved, and they end up taking their life. So anything that could cause anyone, an adult or student, to take their life is serious, and it warrants us paying attention to. Next slide, please. Some more effects of the victim is changing in eating habits. They may have difficulty sleeping or frequent nightmares. They may have a loss of friends or avoid social situations. They may feel helpless or decreased self-esteem. So now you're seeing them feel really bad and talk negatively about themselves. They may be self-destructive. That could be running away. That could be they could start cutting or harming themselves, because all self-harm isn't for suicide. Some is just a strategy to release the emotional turmoil they're suffering. Risky behaviors can include sexual promiscuousness, getting involved in drugs and alcohol to try to numb some of what they're feeling. So you may see an array of self-destructive behaviors. And then you may see mental health challenges, which is dear to my heart, because that's the area I really enjoy focusing on. So you may begin to see anxiety as it relates to going to school or social situations. You may start to see depression, them being sad all the time. Depression isn't just an occasional sadness, it's a pattern of sadness. And you notice that they may have a hard time carrying out tasks that was normally easy. So instead of me telling you once to wash the dishes, now I have to keep telling you, because you lack the energy and the motivation to do anything besides lay around. You may notice crying spells, and you ask, what's wrong? Nothing. They're unexplained. So there's a lot of different things that can happen in the area of mental health from bullying. Next slide, please. Let's talk about the effects of bystanders, because oftentimes when children are being bullied, there are people watching. Sometimes they don't know what to do. They feel like they're kind of stuck in the middle, or like my grandparents used to say, between a rock and a hard place. And so they do nothing. They watch. And so bullying affects them also, although they're just bystanders. They may be afraid to associate with the victim for fear of lowering their own status or fear of retribution. If I take up for you, Now they're going to come from me. And I'm going to be in the same predicament. So they do nothing. And a lot of times we get mad at those that are bystanders, but there's usually reasons behind why they don't act. They may fear reporting bullying incidents because they do not want to be called a snitch. What I often like to do when kids use the word snitch, I like to kind of clarify what that is. So I'm just going to mention this just in case you ever have to use it with your children. So how I explain and define snitch to children is a snitch is a person who participates in a negative behavior with you, but when they're caught, they tell you were a part of it also. A snitch isn't a person that's uninvolved in the incident that has the courage to speak up. You only become a snitch if you're involved. So if me and you rob the bank, I get caught by the police and tell on you, that's a snitch. But if you rob the bank and I have nothing to do with it, and I say I know that who did it, I'm not a snitch. I'm telling what I saw because I have nothing to lose or gain. I'm an innocent bystander. A bystander may also experience feelings of guilt and helplessness for not standing up to the bully on behalf of their classmate. So sometimes the bystander suffers some mental health challenges also because they feel like helpless. How I can't help this person, but yet I have to witness my friend or someone I care about try to handle this alone. And that can be just as challenging on them. Next slide, please. The effects on the bullies themselves. I know you probably say, how does that affect them? They're the one doing it, but it does. Studies have found that bullying in childhood may be an early sign of the development of violent tendencies, delinquency, and criminality. So children who bully have a higher rate of being involved in criminal activities by the age of 24. So 3 times more likely than those they have bullied. So that's how it affects them. Those are the kids who grow up to be criminals most times. 3 times more likely. That's a lot. 3 times more likely is a significant number. So we want to make sure our children aren't the bullies also. We don't always want to just pay attention to those being bullied. We need to make sure that our children aren't the bullies. Because sometimes we don't know. We're not there. So if we get those calls or if it's reported, let's make sure we're following up with them in addition. Thank you. Next slide. How to combat bullying and its effects. The first way to combat bullying is to educate, which is what Mean Girls do. You educate children and adults and those that you have contact with on bullying, what it is, what it looks like, its effects, and other ways to communicate and interact that is socially appropriate. The next way is to communicate. You have to communicate with students and young adults to find out what's going on with them. Because if you're not talking to them, you're not gonna know. And the only way to get them to feel comfortable communicating with you about these things is to be in relationship with them. So you have to have a positive relationship, a trusting relationship, so that they're comfortable communicating to you about bullying. Then you have to intervene. If you see or know something, you got to say or do something. Intervene can be something as simple as talking to a parent about what their child has shared, talking to a teacher, talking to an administrator, and it could be something as serious as talking to the police. It just depends on the level of intervention needed. And if ever you don't know how to intervene, don't be ashamed to ask for help, ask for guidance, talk to someone who may know next steps. The next way to combat bullying is to report it. And that goes with intervening sometimes. Make sure you're reporting. The next way to combat bullying is to support. We have to support the victims. We can't tell them to man up. That's normal. All kids do it. Quit crying. Don't be a punk. Oh, there's a gamut of words that those being bullied may be called. But those aren't the words we choose to use. We're going to use positive words to build them up, to reassure them, to improve their self-concept, and to support them so that they recognize they are not alone. We're going to be their allies. And then we're going to protect them by any means necessary. And I'm not talking about violence and the parents getting involved, going up fighting minor children, but I mean protect them. If your child is being bullied at a school and you've reported it and it's not going anywhere, you may have to make those tough decisions that I'm not sending my kid back to that school until I speak to a district representative or the superintendent or Channel 2 News. Whatever level you have to go to, your goal is to protect your child. So do what's necessary in the legal realm to protect your child. And then you may have to get some mental health treatment. I know that a lot of times people don't like to talk about mental health treatment, but it could be mandatory because you don't want them to suffer in silence. Why allow them to suffer in silence when help is available? And mental health treatment doesn't always mean outside of school. There's supports in schools. There's school counselors and there's social workers in every school at some part of the week. Reach out to those resources and get help to support your child and help them process the impact bullying has had on their lives. Next slide, please. So who's responsible for protecting and addressing bullying? Everyone, all of us. Next slide, please. Here's some resources that can be utilized to help in addition to school. And I just gave some basic hotline. So the suicide prevention hotline, if you ever feel like your kid is in crisis and they mention anything related to suicide, you can call that line. There's a depression hotline. And then kids like to text. So you can text the word home to 741741 and reach a volunteer counselor. And they will actually text back and forth with your child if necessary. Next slide, please. So this is where my data came from and the information. So I just wanted you all to know where I gathered the information from in case you ever want to do your own research. Next slide, please. Questions. I know I gave a lot of information in a short 30-minute period of time, but I wanted to make sure that you had the information you needed to at least begin to think and ponder on what bullying looks like, what some of the signs to look for in your children, and how to combat it so that you leave with at least some information. So is there any questions?
And those of you guys who are viewing this live stream, feel free to put your questions in the chat. We can definitely see those and address those questions during this live conversation. I think you did an excellent job sharing this information with us, Dr. Tawana. And so thank you so much. We have one of our Mean Girls moms on the line, and she's a parent advocate for bullying. So I just wanted to open up the floor to her because she may have some questions for you. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Ms. Tamara, and then audience, feel free to send your questions in. We'll definitely get to those.
Thank you, Shatina. Thank you, Tawana, for this information.
You're welcome.
I did have a few questions. Sometimes when it comes to bullying, as far as reporting to the school, it doesn't feel like you have the support that's needed to have it resolved. I would say from like personal experience, you meet with the teacher, I've met with the principal, and the things that was put in place um, kept recurring after that. So I noticed you said in your information, as far as going to the superintendent or going to the district, what would be the steps to do so if you have spoke with the teacher, and if you met with the principal and certain policies they have where you can't interact or even speak with the other parent that is the parent of the bully. How do you go about going up the chain of command when you
Okay.
feel you don't have the support you need from the school,
Okay.
initially?
So different schools handle bullying differently, but there is a uniform discipline code that every school district has that should outline the steps related to bullying. Some districts will let the parents meet to resolve, because I've even been a part of those meetings a long time ago, though, in the past. Um, so if they won't let you meet and they haven't resolved the issue, my next step would be the superintendent, if there's a superintendent, or the district level. Those numbers are usually a part of it. Let's say it was Chicago. That's information you can get off of their website to see the next steps. You can also talk to the law department of that school district about what's going on and your efforts to resolve them. And don't forget, if they're doing anything related to any of the criminal activities we discussed, because there's no federal laws, but there are criminal laws, you can get the police involved.
Okay. Thank you.
And if you ever need help finding those steps, I'd be willing to help you with that chain of command.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, Dr. Tamara, I'm a parent myself. And of course, having a bullying organization, my sons are not open to say, Mom, this is happening at school. What are some signs that you can look for in your child to, notice, or just signs or cues or tips that you can see whether or not they're being bullied or something is happening at school?
Okay. And sometimes it's not at school, but the easiest way to explain is look for changes in behavior. So if your child was always social and playful, and now they're seeming a little withdrawn, isolated, may not want to partake in activities with their peers. If now they always had perfect attendance or enjoyed going to school, and now they always complaining of being sick, tired, or give you alternate reasons to why they shouldn't go to school. Again, if you see unexplained injuries, marks, if they come home hungry all the time, and they used to eat at school, but now they are not. So any significant changes in behavior, things that they once enjoyed that they may not be enjoying, their affect, their personality may change, things they enjoyed wearing, now they're self-conscious about wearing. They once wanted to play basketball, but now they don't want to play, and they're giving you reasons like they practice too much. And you say, well, they've always practiced. The practice schedule has always been the same. Mm-hmm. So any significant changes in behaviors even if it's not bullying, it may be a sign of something else that requires some exploration.
That's good to know. Now, throughout my research, Dr. Tamara, I've read Tawana. I'm so sorry. Both of you guys got tea, so I do apologize.
That's okay.
I was reading that girls are more likely to be victims of bullying than boys. Why do you think so?
Because girls care about things boys don't. So girls care more about their appearance, and we're more sensitive by nature. Mm-hmm. But we're also more messier by nature. I'm sorry, it's the truth. Uh, boys don't care about a lot of things girls take to heart. So I'm not sure it's that they're being bullied more. I just think what people say and do affect them differently. So if you tell a boy, you fat, you ugly, they don't care. They're going to say, but I still got the girls. The girls still like me. You know what I mean? They don't internalize it. And boys express their emotions more aggressively. So they may fight one another. Where girls internalize, they externalize. So their emotions come out in behavior externally. Our emotions go internally. So we keep them inside.
Great answer. Great answer. It looks like we have a question from our audience. What are some phrases kids can tell someone to stop bullying?
There's no magic phrases. I wish it was. One of the things I always tell students to tell people who are bullying is the truth. I don't like what you're doing. I'm going to report it if you don't stop. And what you're doing is not right. Because there's no, it used to be things they could say that meant something to the bully, but it doesn't anymore. So I tell them to be honest about what they're feeling. The first step to ending it is you have to make known that I don't like this. I don't think it's funny. I'm not playing. And sometimes that works because, believe it or not, sometimes kids really think it's a joke. So I'm going to talk about your hair every day and everybody's laughing. So to me now it's comical. And they don't realize why everybody else is laughing is really impacting that student. So one of the first steps I always tell them is to make your position known. I don't like this. What you're saying is hurting my feelings.
Yep.
Or leave me alone. Or I'm going to tell the teacher. And then I'm going to go to the dean. And then I'm going to go to administration. But there's not a key phrase. It's just real important for them to know, to let the person who's treating them like that know that this isn't fun to me and I don't like it.
Yeah. And I do want to just say this as well, that I noticed that there has been an uptick in cyberbullying.
Yes.
There's an uptick in cyberbullying. Yes. And what suggestions, what advice do you have for parents when it comes to like those social media platforms?
Have access to your child's social media. I know they're going to cry, they're going to hate you, they're going to not speak to you. But the only way to really monitor it is if you have access. Yeah. If you can see what's going on their pages. And it is an uptick. And children are so slick now that they're creating their own pages. So this called Mean Girls. It may be Mean Girls in the Raw. I just thought of something. That only certain people know about that website. And they'll go on there and post all kind of private information, pictures, and put you out there. And you may be the last person to know. So it's important for us to monitor our children's social media.
That is absolutely true. All right, there's another question in a chat. What is the best way to try to resolve the underground silent bullying? Nothing negative to your face, but it's always behind your back. Maybe on an underground social media website. Hard to bring it to the admit at school without evidence.
Okay, so the underground bullying. A lot of times it comes off as playfulness, but it's really not playfulness. So the best way to address it is head on. You don't always need evidence. You just need a child who's feeling unsafe or uncomfortable with what's going on. So I don't have to prove to you that what Shatina is saying to me is bothering me. Here's the evidence of how it's bothering me. A lot of times administrators can't act without evidence in their defense. If there's no proof, then they can't punish someone else's child when there's nothing to show that it's going on. But I still would make them aware and tell them to be on the lookout. It may be something like maybe that child or student need to just not interact with that group of people, because when you hear more, it affects you more. So if I'm always around Shatina and I hear her negative comments, it's going to affect me more than it would if I didn't know about it. So it may mean me removing myself from that situation and that group of peers. But I would again address it. And you may have to hold them courageous conversations with your children and say, you're free to address this. If someone makes a nasty comment to you, you can say something back. That don't mean you got to be nasty and derogatory and cussing them out. No, but you have a right to speak assertively, because sometimes if they're passive, it keeps going because they're not responding. It keeps going. But if they're assertive, then people will back up. Not aggressive, just assertive.
Absolutely. I want to throw this out there as well. And it looks like our parent advocate has a question too, but I want to just throw this out there as well. I experienced a student that was being bullied in school, and mom went to the school to, I think mom informed one of the teachers or something. And what the teacher did, or the dean, pulled the student to the side and said word verbatim what mom mentioned to the teacher. And from there, that student was like, bullying was like on another level. And I feel like that situation like amplified the kids to attack this person even more. And to the point where this child then tried to attempt suicide. What advice do you have to give to educators or administrators who, when the child reports bullying to them, what advice do you have to give to them on how to handle that situation? And I don't know if I'm stepping out of my lane asking you this, but I want to just bring that bring that to this audience's attention as well.
Okay. So the first thing is, and let me say this in defense of administrators, they have to report what's been reported to them. They don't have to go to the bully and say that Shatina's mother said. That's inappropriate. But they do have to report what's being reported to them. So they may, if you, can I use you for an example, Shatina?
Absolutely.
So if you go tell, your mother comes and tell a principal that Johnny posted a video of Shatina on Facebook, the principal now has to say to Johnny, I need the video. I need you to delete the video. And because Johnny is a minor, she's going to have to inform Johnny's parent of this behavior. So it may not be verbatim, but there's also steps they have to take. That's protocol for their different school districts based on where they are. So in their defense, a lot of times they're following their protocol. And by addressing the bully, they're trying to get them to know that I have the knowledge. Stop it. There's consequences for your actions. But sometimes it makes the situation worse. And students know that. That's why a lot of times they don't want to tell their parents.
Right.
Because they're like, it's going to make it worse.
And in this situation, I think like the dean talked to the kid and was like, hey, you doing da da da. But the parent the parent of that child was never notified. I don't think it was documented at all. And so when this child that was being bullied attempts suicide, mom called school and said, I had spoke with Dean such and such.
Yes.
What have you guys done? And nobody did anything. Like,
because it wasn't written up.
Yes.
And in that instance, that's a school issue, not a mom's issue. Because any reports of bullying should be documented. So one of the things a parent can do is they can ask for a copy of the written document. So if I come and talk to you about my child being bullied, I'm sure you have to write it up. Can I get a copy of whatever you write up? Excuse me. I don't know what school district and what their laws are, but I'm talking in general now. Can I have access to that write-up?
That's great advice.
For my records. Because now at least you're able to ensure that the documentation is taking place. And that your situation isn't falling through the cracks. Yeah, that's what they call incident reports. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Miss Tamara?
Yes. I wanted to piggyback on what Dr. Tawana was saying about, so the challenges I face from personal experience, you tell your child to be assertive and they have a right to stand up for themselves. But, some children's personalities, they rather not. What advice can you give and recommend a parent to ensure the child that as long as you're being respectful and you're saying what you don't like, you won't get in trouble? Like the whole thing of a parent telling a child you won't get in trouble, but it's just not being received.
Yes, because sometimes it's just not their personality. It's not that it's not received. I hear you, but that's not my personality. I don't want to get into an altercation, verbal or physical. Some kids are more timid, more passive, more laid back, and they just don't want to get into those conflicts. Sometimes it's because it's personality. Sometimes it's because I don't feel like I'm a win. And sometimes it's because I'm going to make it worse. But if I'm quiet and unassuming, maybe they assume move on to the next person, which often happens. So you may not be able to change that child's personality. It's unfortunate, but you may not. And so you're going to be the key protector component in combating this situation. Because you have to know your child. Some children, you would say, you don't let nobody bully you. You take up for yourself. And the next day, the school will be calling you like Johnny had a fight. What was they fighting over? Because he said, yo mama, and this, that, and the other. That's their personality.
Right.
But some aren't. And usually those kids with those aggressive personalities, they're not the ones being bullied. Because they don't even care if they lose a lot of times. They just don't want you to think you can keep doing this to me. It's usually the kids that won't respond and that's not aggressive or assertive and don't report. So you're your kid's biggest advocate in that situation. And don't ever let anyone make you feel like you're advocating too much. You advocate and take it to whatever level you need to protect your child.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. That is great information. We have one of our Mean Girl staff members on. She's our program director. Putting in the chat, she said, listen, we got resources out there on Mean Girls website. And that is exactly correct. please check out our website. There is crisis intervention resources for parents and students to go out there and get the help that they need if they are being bullied, if they're thinking about suicide, depression. We have the Trevor Project information out there. So definitely check out our website. There's tons of resources out there if you are in need of resources. It looks like our questions in the chat has ended. And I just want to again thank you both for being here to have this discussion with us. We are in the month of October. We're still in October, although November is right around the corner. And we have been celebrating all month. And I don't want to say celebrate, but we have been making sure that we bring more awareness around this conversation of bullying prevention, educating our community, educating our girls, educating our schools about the importance of bullying prevention. And we will continue to do that as an organization. If you do not know much about the organization, please go out to our website. You can find information about our mentoring program at www.meangirlsempowerment.org. We are on all social media platforms. So that's Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. You can find us everywhere: Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok. We are all about promoting awareness to prevent bullying and empowering our girls to live a positive, healthy lifestyle. Thank you all so much again for taking the opportunity to join us. I'm going to let Tawana end it with her final slide. And then if you guys do have questions, don't hesitate. Send those to us. You can email us. You can also find us on our website and send those to our communication chat boxes, and we'll go ahead and get those questions answered for you. There will be more workshops like this for parents. So be on the lookout, because we'll try to make sure we keep our parents engaged on a quarterly basis. So thank you guys again. I appreciate the feedback that you all are sharing in the chat. Thank you guys. And Tawana, I am going to turn it over to you.
Okay. And my final slide. Don't worry about it. I just wanted to thank you. I wanted to thank Mean Girls Empowerment, the participants, and everyone who is committed to putting an end to bullying. It's going to take all of us. It is a community effort, but I know when we get together and collaborate and work together, we can end anything. So thank you for your time, your energy, your commitment, and your effort to keeping our children safe.
Awesome. Have a good night, ladies.
Good
and
evening.
Thank you so much for joining this broadcast.
Thank you.
Good night.